Yes, everyone, welcome back to the Football Philosophy Podcast. This is our second season, episode one, and this is the 30th season of the Premier League since the relaunch, the restart of the Premier League season. And you know what, yeah? With me today to review the first match week of the new Premier League season is yours truly, Trey, and big Liverpool fan, George. Guys, welcome to the podcast.
It's good being on. It's good being on. And look, we've got a special guest as well, man. George. George has been doing some great work on his end, so it's good to have him back on the pod. Now, how you gonna start this, Abdi? How you gonna start this with
Yeah,
some
so
philosophy?
first of all, we've got the annual appearance for George.
Yep.
Um, you know, it's a special appearance once every year.
This is once in a lifetime experience right now, so we have to
But yeah,
enjoy
no,
it.
it's great to have you back on the show,
Yeah.
George. What's what you saying now? Like, I know you said you just came back to the gym from the gym. What's the heat saying in London? Because for us here in Manchester, it's terrible, man.
I'm not in London. I'm in the southwest. I'm by Bristol. It's hot. It's hot.
Oh,
It's at
right,
33
right, right.
today. So yeah, it's a hot one. It's got cooler though. But yeah, I wouldn't miss this one. I've got, as I said to Trey before in the chat, we've got a lot to talk about with the opening weekend.
Mm.
So it's an interesting one, interesting season. So I couldn't miss it out. It's
Yeah,
good to
man.
be back.
Excellent,
Yes.
bro. Yeah,
Good being
yeah.
back.
Let's get into it. Obviously, just to mention the results of the first week of the season. Arsenal started off the season with a 2-0, not an impressive win, but at least they got the job done. Kind of like result where it was like just get it done. Fulham against Liverpool, Mitrovic proving that he can actually do it in the Premier League. We're going to talk about that a little bit. Aston Villa's Steven Gerrard's Aston Villa lost to Bournemouth. Newcastle winning 2-0 against Nottingham Forest, who came with so many new players, obviously with Lingard and Demlot. You got Tottenham winning 4-1, Leeds winning 2-1, Chelsea winning at Everton, even though it was like some scrappy win. And you got Brentford against Leicester City. Brentford actually managed to come back from 2-0, which is a result that United couldn't do against Brighton, where they ended up eventually losing 2-1. We're going to talk about that game as well in depth. And also, we had an amazing debut from Erling Haaland, bro, the number one striker in the world. Him scoring 2-0 for West Ham United. So, guys, let's get stuck into it. The first game I want to talk about is, since we've got George on here, let's talk about Liverpool Fulham. You got Mitrovic terrorizing Van Dijk and the Liverpool defense. What did you make of the game overall?
It wasn't a great game to watch. Not for a Liverpool fan anyway. We were just so flat in the first half. Just didn't look ourselves. We didn't look anywhere like the team that played Man City the week prior in the Community Shield. It was just really poor, just no intensity, maybe some complacency. You wouldn't usually see that from a Liverpool side, but it kind of looked like we rocked up there expecting just to get an easy 3 points. I hate to say it, but Trent was weak with the first goal. I think he just got out jumped. Should have been stronger. Should have checked his shoulder. The second goal, I wasn't very happy with. The Mitrovic penalty, I don't think was a penalty in a million years. I think it was a clear dive, but you might expect me to say that. But yeah, I just don't see how it was given as a penalty. I wouldn't say that he got the better of Van Dijk. Um, Personally, I think he just jumped over his leg, but it is what it is. You don't get all the decisions. So yeah, it was good to show some character from us to get back into the game twice. It kind of made it feel a bit more like a win, I guess, especially with Nunes getting himself a goal. I think it's going to be such a problem this season for defenses. I mean, people are obviously talking about the likes of Erling Haaland, but I think Nunes, I think he just fits our system. You can see it. I think there was not concerns of whether or not he was the correct guy because Liverpool don't really get signings wrong, but how quickly would it take him to settle? He doesn't speak English. Very different environment, different from the leagues that he's played in before. But he just looks confident. He looks comfortable with Diaz and Salah. I think we looked so much better when Harvey Elliott came on. Elliott came on the right hand side. Salah got more of the ball. We looked more threatening, and that's what got Diaz that Nunes that goal. Sorry. So there's positives to take. what I always say is, look, we're never going to win every single game. I remember when Liverpool were expected not to win most games in the era of the likes of Hodgson or Dalglish, or even certain times when Brendan Rodgers was in charge. So we're now at a point where on any given day we're the favourites. The only game in any season where we're not the favourites is maybe Man City away. The other 37 games in the league, we're favourites to win that game. We're not. That's not going to happen. It's never going to happen. You're going to drop points. You're going to drop City points. City will drop City points this season. It's a long race. There's 37 games to play. I think we've showed that we can compete on all fronts more effectively than Man City can when you consider the outcome of last season. So it's disappointing, but it's a good little wake up call. First game of the season away from home, where the players are going to look at themselves, and we're going to play at home to Crystal Palace, and we're going to say we're not going to let that happen again. There's a question mark as to how we're going to cope without Thiago. But I think we'll be okay. There's no real concern. I think there's less pressure on us this season because City obviously won the league last season, so they're favourites again. They've signed Haaland. I did predict last season I think they'd struggle without a striker, and I was very wrong about that. And I did arguably the best striker in the world, or one of them. So yeah, and I think maybe there's suggestions that we're a midfielder shy in our squad. So there's not so much pressure on us. We'll see what happens, but
Yeah,
it could be worse. But
yeah, no, you summarized it pretty well there. We're gonna come back to the midfield issue, if there is such an issue in Liverpool's lineup. But like, what impressed me the most was obviously the fact that they managed to come back into the game, and they could have actually won it at the end with the Jordan Henderson chance. That I think it would have been an amazing. I think it would have been an amazing way to win the game with a chance like that. And literally 93rd minute, I think it was. But what impressed me the most was Nunez coming on and just causing like chaos everywhere to defense. Were you surprised that he didn't start the game because of the way he played against Man City? Like, he came on and made the difference, and then in the Fulham game, you got Firmino starting, or is it a case where no matter who starts, you expect Liverpool to just come in there and win the game? It doesn't matter if it's Nunez or Firmino.
That's a good question, man.
it's a very good question. I think I think regardless, we're favourite. As I said, we're favourites to win any game, regardless of whether Nunez or Firmino or even Jota is starting when he becomes fit again. I thought it was a huge opportunity for Firmino because I watch Liverpool week in, week out. I still think Firmino is one of the best players in our squad on his day. What I love about him is he's so intelligent, and he has such a unique playing style. Because even though he probably wasn't as good of a player as Mane, you're looking at that front three of Mane, Firmino, Salah, thinking that all their contracts are going to expire at the same time. They're all knocking on 30, 31 years of age. One of them had to go. And I think Mane was the right choice because Salah's still got plenty of life in him. Mane was great for the last 6 months of the last season, but he was very inconsistent for the year or so before. And Firmino, even though he is inconsistent and he has had fitness problems, I think he is just so unique and so difficult to replace. Whereas everyone's saying that, Liverpool have lost Mane, but I've seen Liverpool where we've lost Steven Gerrard or Luis Suarez, Fernando Torres, even players like Mascherano and Alonso. Like the situation that we were in when we lost the likes of Mascherano, and he was such a good player in such a unique position at that time, he was difficult to replace. Like, I've seen many players come and go from Liverpool, and the thing that needs to change for us to have a really bad season is the manager.
Yeah.
And Klopp's not going anywhere. So regardless of whether Firmino starts or Nunez starts, Klopp will figure out who's the starter. I think it was a huge opportunity for Firmino, which he didn't take because he wasn't great. And when Firmino's off it, the whole team's off it. And I'm not scapegoating Firmino because there were some really bad individual performances. I mentioned Trent for the goal. I don't think Henderson was very good. But yeah, I still think regardless, we're set up. I think Nunez is obviously going to be much more of a number 9. I think we're going to switch
that's my
our
point,
attack
though.
plays.
Like, for example, the next game is against Crystal Palace at home for you guys. Do you expect Firmino to start that game, or is he going to go with Nunez? Or is it going to be a case where he'll still keep Nunez like, sort of like his super sub until the Man United game at Old Trafford?
I think he'll start Nunes because one thing that you saw last season with the likes of Jota when I know he had injury problems, and the second half of the season he didn't really score many goals. But I think in the first 6 months or so of the season he scored 15 goals, and he displaced Firmino as that starting player.
Yeah.
And you've seen it happen with Matip displacing Gomez. You've seen it happen with Konate displacing Matip. You've even seen it at times where Robertson was injured, Tsimikas would come in and have a really good game, and he would stay there for a couple of games. So Klopp isn't afraid to switch his team based on merit. He obviously wants to go with the form players rather than just who he considers a better player. I do think it will depend on how he perceives the team to set up, or the opposition team to set up, because as I say, Firmino is just so unique in how intelligent he is in how he plays. But after that first half performance from Firmino, and Nunes kind of turned the game on its head. Same thing with Community Shield.
Yeah.
Like those were big moments of huge amounts of pressure for a player who's just turned 23. Like he's younger than I am, and he went and did the business, and Firmino didn't. And as much as I love Firmino, like, as I say, I'm not going to scapegoat him or anything, but I don't see how Nunes doesn't start next week. I just don't see how he is left out of the team.
Yeah.
He
No,
looks set,
you're
but
right.
he's settled in it.
You're right about that. It's about the squad management. Sorry. Trey, what do you think of the point that George made about, in terms of, it doesn't matter if they lose Mane, it doesn't matter if they lose Mascherano, Alonso, whereas like in the past when they lost some key players, in the past, because of the management, because of the directors, because of the owners, it's completely different. You got a manager now in there who's got basically the aura that Sir Alex Ferguson used to have, the power of the manager. It speaks for itself. So do you think it's this season we're going to be seeing the same Liverpool that we saw last season, where they're going to go all the way with Man City, maybe even try to win the championship? Or do you think the loss of Mane is going to have an impact on them going forward?
Yeah, so obviously I just need to say that George obviously made some fantastic points, because Liverpool's foundation and structure over the years under Klopp, you can clearly see that this man has built a squad, a team over the years, and now he has the formula, the structure, that every player in the squad understands their role, understands the structure. So no matter what happens in terms of formation and players coming in, the players know the role. So in terms of losing a Mane, it may, from a sense, you lose a bit of an impact, but them bringing in Nunes is a sort of different type of player that sort of slots into Klopp's philosophy, if that sort of makes sense. But it doesn't really, you don't really feel that they've weakened. They've obviously just replaced Mane, but they've replaced him with a player that's younger, two, that just brings something completely different, and three, it also allows sort of Firmino to be that sort of lead man up top. And I think Klopp, what he's doing something quite intelligent. He's easing them in. He's easing them in slowly into the Premier League. Because remember, George obviously said he's 23. He's coming from the Portuguese league. He's not going to come in straight away and start straight away. You have to ease him into the sort of system. Even if you look at when Klopp signed Fabinho, I believe he didn't start
I was
him
about to
until
say the same thing. Yeah,
he didn't start
didn't
him.
play for
And
3 months.
Robertson.
Yeah. So like clearly Klopp, like I understand George's confidence, because like we were where he was with Ferguson. Like anything Ferguson did, because of what he's built over the years, you're like, you know what? I believe in it, and I understand exactly where he's coming from. So I think that Liverpool are going to be in the race for the title. It's going to be a 2-horse race between them two. Liverpool and City are two of the best teams in the world right now, and I won't be surprised if it just goes through the wire again, because when you look at the rest of the teams compared to them two teams, the levels in class is just a bit, it's off, man. So yeah, I think Nunes adds quality, and I think as the course of the season continues, you will see him slowly get integrated and eventually see him starting. You won't see him start straight away. Klopp's gonna ease him in, and eventually you're gonna see him starting to play, in my opinion.
Absolutely, I agree with you. I mean, I think Liverpool will be up there. I agree with both of you guys. It's gonna be up there again. It doesn't matter about this result against Fulham, but obviously they need to keep up with Man City, because we've seen the difference of between Liverpool and Man City when the Liverpool have been chasing them for the last, I don't know, 4 or 5 seasons in a row. It's always been either goal difference or just 1 point difference.
Mm.
So these kind of games, when they come around, they need to have like basically proper go at it. Just take every game as seriously as possible, and you'll be there. I'm sure they'll be there at the end of the season competing for the title. And that's something that Sir Alex Ferguson always used to say. He always said that you know it doesn't matter if you win or lose, as long as you're up there and challenging for the title. That's the most important thing. So, and obviously, if you're challenging, it means that you will get there. So I think this season, as fun as it sounds, even though Man City have signed Haaland, you might even see them, winning the league somehow. You never know. Um, okay, let's talk about a team that is definitely not going to win the league this season. That's Man United.
Mm.
Um, Before I talk about them and their defeat, I want to talk about Graham Potter. I want us to give him all the applause possible, as much as possible, all the credit. Going to Old Trafford with a Brighton team that's never ever won at Old Trafford, and basically just turning up there with the swagger and the confidence of like he's coaching Barcelona or FC Bayern, and then just dismantling this Man United team. I mean, the way they played the football from from the back all the way to the top, and you got obviously Danny Welbeck, just playing with the game of his life, I would say, even though he didn't score or even assist. Yeah, guys, let's give them some credit. Let's talk about Brighton for a little bit before we talk about our frustration with Man United and all of that.
Yeah, of course, of course. Look, I could even start us off with this one, Brighton. Graham Potter, you have to give the man credit, in terms of how he's sort of built this Brighton team over the years. He's done a tremendous job. You could see the team is well trained, well put together, similar to like a Klopp, not on that level, but every player knows their role. Everyone knows what to do. He even saved some players on the bench, like Lamptey, for example. Like this is a player that potentially I would love Manchester United to have him as a right back, like potentially, someone for the future. You just see these type of players that they're sort of. You can even argue also that they are weakened based on the players that they left,
Yeah, yeah,
during the summer window.
yeah,
Losing, Bissouma and Cucurella,
yeah,
but yet it just shows you that similar to Klopp, if they're losing certain players because the system, the structure, the strategy is in place, no matter what player is going to play for the players that have left, they're just going to fit in. They know what they need to do, and we saw that Brighton beat a Manchester United team that's not put together yet. I would say it's still in the process of being built, because I think Ten Hag for that game, he obviously, for me, my personal opinion, it was a bit of naivety. Starting Scott McTominay and Fred, I felt that as soon as he changed the formation and brought Ericsson deeper from playing that false nine role, you saw the dynamics in midfield
mm,
changed. When
mm,
Ronaldo come on, we've got more of a vocal point. So tactically, I think Ten Hag got it wrong, but for the future, I'm hoping, based on what happens in the window, we obviously get players in. So, in my opinion, I do not want to see Mick Fred starting in the midfield for Manchester United, especially if we're going to play Liverpool as well. I would want us to have a sort of different, two holding players in that position, because for me, it's not always about having a, whenever people think about defensive midfielders, they think, oh, they need to have energy, they need to be a destroyer. No, like sometimes it's just about distribution from the back, you know, picking the ball from deep and being able to make those passes in between the lines to create opportunities. And I feel that when you're playing a McTominay and Fred in those roles, you're gonna get energy, you're gonna get, you know, a bit of aggression,
Yeah.
but you're gonna see a lot of sideways passing. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? And for me, we need forward passing. We need passes like in the box so we can, you know, create more opportunities from attack.
Okay. Yeah, George, do you want to add anything onto that?
Yeah, obviously I'm loving it seeing the state Man United are in. I've had to suffer for long enough as a
No,
childhood
go
Liverpool
for
fan.
it. Of course, of course.
And,
Look,
yeah,
Oh,
roles
do you
are
want to talk about the
reversed.
Brighton first? The way Brighton played,
Yeah,
and then we'll
Yeah,
talk
and then
about
so
United.
slaughter us after.
credit to Potter. I mean, it goes back to what Trey was saying. It's like you can just see the difference in teams who have a manager who has a philosophy and a vision and a framework of how he wants the team to play, and it makes it so much easier in the long term. Because if you look at like the number of, like if I use United as an example, the number of top quality players who have come through the door for big money and haven't improved, they've got worse, they've flopped, they've left on free transfers. I think the only player who you made a profit on since Ferguson left was Dan James. So that shows how bad your recruitment's been. But
Wow.
with Brighton, they
Yeah.
have their philosophy, and that means they get the recruitment right. And it doesn't matter if Basuma goes or Kukurea goes, because they have a recruitment strategy in place. They know who to replace those players with, who can fit the system, and it runs like clockwork. And it's as I say, it's very apparent that like you can even see with Conte, Arteta, they have their philosophies. They can bring in players who fit into those philosophies in the long term to start to build a team. Like Arteta, he struggled a bit with Arsenal to begin with. He's had 2 or 3 transfer windows now over a couple of years, and you can start to see that actually pay off. And that's what United don't have because you've been chopping and changing manager. Um, as I say, players have come and gone. I actually remember when I was a kid when Ronaldo left United and everyone said United are finished because Ronaldo's gone. I remember my dad said he went to Anfield once when I think when Ryan Giggs was injured for United Liverpool game at Anfield. Ryan Giggs was injured, and I think Phil Neville played left wing that day.
Yeah.
And he was like, you didn't really notice any difference. It sounds silly, but you didn't because United had a philosophy under Ferguson. They knew how to play. Every player knows their role in each position. So it didn't matter. Like if you actually look at the quality of the names of the players who played under Ferguson, a lot of them were actually pretty average, but
Yeah.
they were a team. It worked, and that's exactly what Brighton had and have, and that's exactly what United don't. United is disorganised, just mistakes. People like Dallo didn't press for I think it was the first goal. McTominay losing the ball cheaply in a silly area that we didn't need to. It's really bad, the situation at United. I think you're in actually more danger than what people realise. I think the recruitment over the last few years, even when you haven't been in Europe or not in the Champions League, it still had the element of like it's Man United. It's a huge thing for players, and especially for foreign players who just know the club's name. Obviously, it's still one of the biggest clubs in the world. But it can only go on for so long before players actually realise that the prospect of playing there isn't that great. And if you look at United were in for Nunes, and he didn't even want to hear it. He didn't want to negotiate. Benfica didn't want to negotiate. Frankie de Jong doesn't want to negotiate. You could argue that Martinez went there because of their manager, not necessarily because of the state United are in at present. I think most players would probably rather Arsenal in the state that they're in. It's really not a good situation. You desperately need a number 6. Frankie de Jong isn't that player. You've got Ericsson, Fernandez, you've got Van der Beek, who are those sort of creative players or box-to-box players, if you like. So I don't really know why you're going in for de Jong. I don't think he's a priority. I still think you need a striker. You've got yourself a centre-half, which is a bit of a weird one because I don't know if Ten Hag will actually start Maguire. That's a question I could put to you guys. You asked about Firmino and Nunes. Do you think Maguire will still be a starter? I know that he's still got the captaincy, but it's another.
Yeah, that's
thing
a very good question. Yeah,
Great
and
question.
I think Trey, you should go for this. Yeah, you should answer this question.
Yeah, you know what, George, man, great take on obviously United's current situation right now. Of course, we are essentially where Liverpool were 4 years ago when Klopp first come in. He's just it's a new manager, you know, it's a new philosophy. We've had a lot of changes in the top as well. So I don't think this window is gonna, you know, miraculously clear out all our problems. But I definitely feel that signing Martinez and, you know, having, you know, Varane if he's fit, we will slowly see Maguire get put in the bench, in my opinion. I think he's going to slowly fade him out. But what he's done, I think, as a man, is he's given him an opportunity to sort of, you know, show himself. And naturally, you would, because the whole world were against Maguire. You know, he's the captain. You know, he still kept him, still, you know, gave him the captaincy as well. So I felt that Ten Hag is protecting him, but at the same time is giving him the
Yeah.
opportunity to show himself. But my opinion, I think as the months go on, you're gonna see, because me personally, I thought I was gonna see Varane and Martinez start with Malassi at left back, because I felt that, you know, during pre-season, you know, the boy looked good. And going forward, I think he, you know what, he could have potentially done something. But I think that would be the back four. If we were to pick United's back four just based on what Ten Hag wants and his philosophy, I think you're going Malacia left back, Martinez, you're going Varane, and you're going the lot in this situation at the moment, in my opinion. So the answer to the question, I think Maguire slowly will get phased out, but you know he's got an opportunity to sort of prove himself. So that's why players right now, like, they are in the best positions ever because they've always got the next game to prove themselves. So let's see what Maguire can do, because he's gonna, you know, get opportunities to play. It's down to him to prove why he should be Man United, because he's doing a lot of media talks and saying, "Oh, we're really disappointed with the results" and stuff like that. But it comes to a point where, as a captain, you need to lead by example, not just being vocal, but you need to start putting in basic performances that are, you know, going to be encouraging for the team. Because if I'm playing in midfield, for example, and I got Maguire at the back and he's my captain, and I've seen, you know, mistakes being made, and he's telling me, "Yo, come back, come back," I'm going to be thinking that, not in a disrespectful way, but you're going to be thinking in the back of your mind, like, this guy's make mistakes, like, you know, you
No,
know.
I'm sure that's what Ronaldo thinks about Maguire every time he had touched the ball. And the issue with Maguire, George and Trey, is that I don't think that it's for me. My issue with him is not what he can do as a defender, or the ability that he has as a defender, whether it is defending balls from, crosses, or just playing from the back. I don't have an issue with Maguire as such. But what I do have an issue with is the confidence around Old Trafford when Maguire has the ball. Whenever Maguire does something, they boo him. Even if
Yeah.
he does something good, they're still not happy with him.
Mm,
And that basically transfers over to the players. The
mm,
players have lost confidence in this man. I honestly believe, yeah, the likes of Luke Shaw, the likes of, even, Varane must be thinking like, yo, I'm a World Cup winner. I've won the
mm,
Champions League 4 times. You telling me that you start in this bum before me? Seriously. Now,
yeah.
it's not possible. If Ronaldo would be thinking like, he can't be my captain. So Bruno Fernandes is probably thinking the same thing, because players like Bruno Fernandes, they think like coaches. Like, I know it's cringy to say, but like,
Yeah.
Bruno Fernandes is like a coach on the field. He's talking, he's shouting, he's always pointing to players. Sometimes he can be a little bit annoying, but guess what? The guy is thinking about the team all the time. And if someone is not performing, yeah, there's no hiding place with this manager. And what I would like to say to everyone is, yeah, I am kind of happy that that United have lost like that against Brighton.
Yes.
Like, I
Yep.
really am, because what's his name? Eric Ten Hag can now see exactly what he's got to work with, first of all. Secondly, he can see that there are some players in that team that are just not made to be there. So eventually, he's going to understand everything. It's going to take time. But the only issue with United is that this is for me, one of the biggest clubs in the world. It's not like AC Milan, who were in rebuild with Maldini, and then they won the Serie A last season. I've seen so many people saying like we need to restart. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't know what happened there. Yeah, so some people were saying like the project of AC Milan is what United should be doing, or the Liverpool project with Klopp is what they should be doing. The difference is United is a global phenomenon. There's so many. Every result, every action of a manager, every action of players gets scrutinized. There's no hiding place at United, and they don't give you time to rebuild. The media doesn't give you time. The fans don't give you time. So that's why I feel a little bit, like that the situation is going to be a little bit difficult for Erik ten Hag. But, given the time, given the resources, I honestly believe that he's the man to turn it all around. But the problem is he going to get the time? Like, let's say if United are, I don't know, mid-table by, December times or Christmas times, is he really going to get until the end of the season? That's my worry going into the season. But
He
apart
has
from
to.
that, I'm happy that Erik ten Hag has seen what Rashford is like, what Jadon Sancho is like. Because apart from Fred and McTominay, the guys that nobody's talking about for me are like, Sancho and Rashford. They were hiding. They were nowhere to be seen against Brighton. They didn't do anything creative that you expect them to do. So, yeah, that's my take on that result. But we'll see against Brentford and against Liverpool how it's gonna go.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with you
Yeah.
guys, man. Just before George talks, I agree with exactly what you're saying, Abdi, and I definitely feel that we as a sort of fan base, I agree with you massively in terms of the energy around Maguire right now. In terms of what you see on Twitter, in terms of what you see online, it's very negative. And imagine him as a player, having to sort of deal with this on a constant basis. I could imagine it's not always sort of the best situation to be in. So for me, you just have to back the manager, man. We're just at that stage now where we've chopped and changed a few times. We've got a new structure at the top. We've got obviously a new CEO. Obviously, Abdi's gone, but we go with the flow. But look, I'm excited, man. But George, man, let me hear your take on this anyway, man.
Yeah,
What we
well,
were
one thing I
saying.
was going to say is the point Abdi made about Jadon Sancho. If I'm completely honest, I keep forgetting that you've signed Jadon Sancho. Like that's how little I feel he's done. And I don't watch United week in, week out. I know that last season you got like a handful of goal contributions, but I genuinely forgot that you'd signed him until Abdi just mentioned just then. This is Jadon Sancho that we're talking about.
You
Yeah.
know
I
what?
still
I can
think
take that from
I-
a Liverpool fan. Honestly, I
I
can.
I can't believe Anthony Martial is still at the club. He brings nothing to the team and just no work rate, zero work rate. Rashford probably deserves a place in the squad at least. I know he's not been in great form, but I do think there's still a player in there. He's obviously got a great attitude, and that's what you kind of need. And just go back to Maguire as well. I think one thing that I think is probably perhaps underestimated is about how much his teammates actually trust him. Because he's come under so much scrutiny and he's made so many basic errors last season. I know it was really bad, and obviously when you lose confidence and you make another mistake, and that compounds over time. And Martinez is coming now, and it'll be interesting to see how that midfield works, especially depending on who you sign in midfield, if you even sign a midfielder. It might look like Rabiot's coming in. I know that you guys aren't too happy about that. I've not really seen
No,
much of him
I'm.
to be honest, but
I don't
you know,
mind. I don't mind, man.
you're going to see. I think midfielders dropping deep because Martinez is a ball playing defender, from what I understand, and he can actually play as a six. And you've not really. The thing is, even if he looks to play the ball, you've not really got a midfielder who can actually receive the ball, turn, and distribute. Like you're not going to get that from McTominay. You don't really get it from Fred confidently. Maybe if Fernandes has to drop really deep, but then you're going to lose something going forward. It's an interesting one. I think Varane and Martinez probably is your best centre back pairing. I've not really seen much of Martinez, but obviously he's rated.
Oh,
He
he's
can't be much
brilliant.
worse than
He's
yeah. He
brilliant,
can't.
George.
He
Polished.
can't be much worse than how Maguire's played over the last
No,
year.
the two best players from that game were Ericsson and Martinez. Simple as that.
Easily.
And they're two new players, and that tells you a lot.
Says
Two
enough.
players who were playing at Old Trafford for the first time for Man United in an official game turned out to be the two best players. So that tells you a lot.
I'd be interested to hear what goes on inside the heads of players like Eriksen or Martinez or even Varane, thinking, why have I left Real Madrid for this? He must be kicking himself really, because he
Yeah,
thought. To be fair, I actually thought United had a decent transfer window last summer.
yeah, yeah,
Ronaldo was obviously past his best, but he still got 17 goals, I think, which is pretty still decent. Like you can't scoff at that. Varane coming in and Jadon Sancho. I thought United are going to have a good push for the top four, and it was pretty dreadful. Yeah, it's a very interesting year. But the thing is, you're chopping and changing managers, and you've had all these world class players come through the door, like even Schweinsteiger and Falcao and Sanchez and Ibrahimovic, like all
yeah,
these huge names, like even like Blind and Rojo, like these guys were meant to be like the left back and centre half of the
yeah,
future for you guys.
yeah.
Even like Morgan Schneiderlin was being touted this like
Uh,
this is his big move, and like that move failed. Like there's so many
Mm.
moves like that which just haven't worked. And but back when I was at university, I met this guy who's worked in football for a long time, and he said something which is really interesting. And I think about this all the time when a club sacks a manager. And he said what he's learned is that every single thing, every single decision in the football industry is driven by either ego or paranoia. And what he meant by that, the analogy that he gave me was he said, in the aviation industry, if they want to improve how a plane functions or one of the safety features, they'll look at peer reviewed studies and they'll apply that to the industry. In football, if you actually look from an academic perspective at how sacking a manager, the impact it actually has on a club, it very rarely actually has a net positive effect in the long term. Because you bring in a manager, you've got to pay your manager who you sack a compensation package. He's brought in his own players. Now, if you bring in a manager who, say, like Conte, who has a very unique system, wants to play with three centre halves, wing backs, then have to sign new players for that system. And then, as soon as you don't see results in the short term, fans are on your back saying, "Get rid of this manager, get rid of this player, etc., etc." Then, either out of ego or paranoia, that manager gets sacked, payout, and this whole cycle starts
yeah,
again.
Mm.
yeah,
United need to give Ten Hag time. They need to see a philosophy and a system, which he obviously has at Ajax.
yeah,
He did a very good job at Ajax. And actually, a bit like I said with Arteta, give him windows, give him time, give him the
yeah,
back in with the funds. United obviously have the funds because you spent enough of them over the last few years. Bring in a few players that you need, just a few big gaps. Like I think you need a striker, I think you need a six, and see what happens. I think Ronaldo should be let go. I think you should cash in on
yes,
Martial. I think one of McTominay or Fred should probably leave. I think you need to decide who's better out of Wan-Bissaka and Dalot. They're both probably. I've not really watched a great deal of Dalot, to be fair. More so Wan-Bissaka. Yeah, there's so much to be done, and I really fear for Man United because I don't think you'll get top four. I really don't. I'd actually be surprised if you get maybe top
yeah.
seven. You've got
My prediction was that United will finish sixth, and even that's seeming doubtful because I'm thinking now that I don't know, maybe Leicester or something like that will get in the sixth position. Yeah, Troy, do you want to add anything else? Because I'm actually having some technical problems. I think I'm going to end it quickly on here.
Yeah, no worries. Look, just to sort of surmise what both you guys are saying, definitely look, Ten Hag needs to be backed. He definitely has a philosophy. I like his ideas. I like his style of play. I like the energy that he's going to bring to the club. I just think as a fan base, we need to just support and back him. What we need to understand is the past 10 years, what happened was post Sir Alex Ferguson, meaning that we obviously had Woodward, we had Matt Judge, we had these guys. There was no plan, there was no vision in terms of signings. Everything was erratic. Now we've just sort of changed the structure. So what I'm saying is, for us fans, we just need to just be a bit patient. If like a Rabiot is being highlighted by Ten Hag, Ten Hag, he probably fits into his system. So as fans, we just probably have to see it as, you know what, let's just wait and see what Ten Hag can do with Rabiot, because he's probably thinking, McTominay, Fred, let me just put Rabiot in. If Rabiot plays with one of them or with an Eriksen, then already that midfield looks a little bit different. But look, it's a whole different subject. Main point is patience. It's going to be a long journey, but we just need to back the man and let the man do his thing. And that's all I would say. And that's it, really, man. So what do you think? What do you think, George, in terms of you reckon you guys are doing it this year? Title. Because I need to know, as a honest, passionate Liverpool fan, like what's your feeling? Do you reckon this time around that you got the capability of winning the title this year?
We absolutely have the capability. It's I don't want to sound negative, because we obviously came so close to the quadruple last season, and I'd say we've got stronger. I know Mane left, but I think Nunes is going to have a great year. Other than that, there's not really much change to the squad. I do think we're a midfielder short, with Chamberlain's out for 3 months, and on his day he's excellent. I love Chamberlain, but I just think it's time for him to go. Same thing maybe with Naby Keita. On his day he's great, but he's not fit enough, not consistent enough. You've got the likes of Curtis Jones.
Who would you get? Like if you had.
I think Klopp wants to wait for Jude Bellingham. I think that's why we haven't signed a midfielder, which is understandable because he's a great player. I'm surprised we haven't had a look at Tielemans. Yeah, left on his contract. You're a Tielemans. That's a very good shout. I think Wijnaldum on loan would have been nice, but I think Klopp's like, if you leave, then you've left. Like, he doesn't want to bring him back, which is fair. I think another one which is interesting is to watch the Frank Kessie situation at Barcelona. I don't know if you guys have seen the reports come out today.
Yeah.
But he and Christensen have a clause in their contract where if they aren't registered, they can actually leave the club for free. On the unlikely event that does happen, I think we should be looking at Frank Kessie on a free transfer, because in terms of box-to-box midfielders on a free transfer, and Thiago's injured, Chamberlain's injured, I think we're lacking some depth.
Wait, are you saying that if Barcelona can't register those two players?
Yeah, that's in their contract. So if they, because obviously they've got to sell players to finance the funds. So I think it looks like if one of Depay or Aubameyang will go, one will stay. If they can't offload one of those by the first league game, therefore Kessie, Christensen cannot be registered. Therefore, if they want, they can activate a clause in their contract, which means they can be released on a free transfer. That probably won't happen. But in the case it does happen, I think we should have a look at Frank Kessie, because I saw him play against us in the Champions League group stage last year. Yeah. He was excellent. In terms of box-to-box midfielders, he's fit, he presses, he can pass, he can tackle, and he just covers ground. Like, you can't really ask much more for a Klopp midfielder. And then if you still want Bellingham, because it's a free transfer, so you've got to pay his wages, but it's like, if you want to wait for Bellingham next year, you can go for Bellingham as well. I actually think Henderson, it pains me to say it, but I think he's past his best. Like, fitness is going. You can even see Klopp already starting to manage his minutes, getting 60 minutes and bringing on Harvey Elliott, who I think looks great. I think he'll be looking for that opportunity in the next 6 weeks with Thiago out injured for 6 weeks. Curtis Jones is a good little player, but I don't think he's got enough to be, a starter or not that. I mean, I think with Man City, if you look at their depth compared to ours, I think they actually do have slightly better depth. They missed out on Cucurella, but they've got another left back in from Anderlecht today. Like if Rodri's injured, they've got Calvin Phillips. I think we're going to look to rotate between Henderson and Fabinho in the 6. Then you've got the likes of Keita, but he's not fit enough. Chamberlain, not fit. Thiago, not always fit. And that really worries me. I feel like he might have another centre-back situation on our hands, like with a couple of years ago. So yeah, I think a midfielder would be the one that we need to add. So if I'm being completely honest, I don't think we'll win the league for that reason. But anything can happen. City could have their injuries. Haaland's injury record isn't great. And I'll still back us all the way to win at least a trophy this year. It wouldn't surprise me, I think, if perhaps Klopp puts out a seriously weak team in both the cups, because we won both of those last season, and Klopp doesn't really like the cup competitions anyway. So maybe that's a way to go about it. But yeah, I think we'll win a trophy. I think City are certainly favourites, and for the record, I think it'll be Spurs 3rd, Arsenal 4th, and I think Tuchel will be the first manager to get sacked.
Oh, this is a good prediction. I love that. It's really really good. I like that.
I'll say one more thing on Thomas Tuchel is like the approach with like I said with philosophy. Like, you can kind of see Tuchel's philosophy, but Chelsea's transfer approach seems like a scattergun approach. It's like we need centre half, let's just see who we can get in. It's almost like, oh, that club's interested in him, so we'll go
Let's
after
go and
him.
get him. Yep.
Yeah, like they don't really like. If you look at the forward players that they've had over the last few years, now they don't even have a striker. Like they're playing Havertz as a 9. He just, I look at Kai Havertz and I think he's not really like amazing at anything. I don't think he's a striker. The one that got away for Chelsea is Tammy Abraham. When he was put up for transfer on the transfer list last season, I said to my girlfriend's dad, I was like, Tammy Abraham for 30 or 40 million pounds, we should take a punt. For that reason that we said with Nunes, like he offers something different to the team.
Yeah.
Like Tammy Abraham, just his physical height and strength, like would do that. I think if he had stayed at Chelsea, I think he would probably be one of the best strikers in the league. They've had their fair share of wingers come and go in the last few years. They've got Pulisic, they've got Ziyech, they've got Hudson-Odoi, who hasn't been given chances, which I think is criminal. Loftus-Cheek still in the squad. I think he's had so much potential wasted with loan spells and time out of the team. Like there's players in there who I feel like Chelsea's aren't utilising. They're going in for all these transfer targets. I don't know. I've got a really bad feeling for Chelsea. I think,
it's like they're trying to get De Jong, and they've got Loftus-Cheek there, who's who can play as well.
That's another. If Liverpool were short on cash, if we wanted to bring another midfielder, I would take Loftus-Cheek on loan or on a cheap transfer. I really would. I think he's a good player.
Yeah.
He could do a job in so many teams, and he just doesn't get utilised. The same thing. Hudson-Odoi. Same thing for Kyle Tomori, who Chelsea let go. Like these are homegrown players, and now they're spending all this money on like a 31-year-old Koulibaly. I've not really seen much of him because he's been playing in Italy. I don't really watch much Italian football.
He's a beast.
But it's just like
he's a beast.
Yeah, even I've heard that, but I've also seen a fair share of people say he makes mistakes, like silly mistakes, switching off.
Yeah.
So I'm worried. I'm worried for Chelsea. I think Arsenal just again philosophy. Arsenal, Spurs, more organised. I think Arsenal's squad is really good. I don't think they've got any world-class players, but I think they've got good players in each position. Nice bit of depth. I'd be worried if I was a Chelsea fan. I really would.
Okay, so Tuchel to be the first manager to be sacked, yeah? All right. So I think it's going to be Brendan Rodgers, but we'll see. Right, Trey, do you want to add anything else?
You know what? I'm just grateful that we've had a good therapy session, guys, man. So thank you, Mr. Philosophy, and thank you, George, once again. Keep up the great work that you're doing in your end, and we loved your sort of take on Liverpool. And look, it would break my heart if Liverpool signed Kessie. It would, because I asked these guys. I've been calling for Kessie for a long time. I've been watching him at AC Milan. I know what he brings to the game. And if you guys were to sign him, it would be a problem. So, but Jude Bellingham
I don't think it's
going
to happen. I think they will find a way to register both Christensen and Frankie Kessie. But I don't think that's going to happen. I'm sure Frankie De Jong is going to end up at United. I'm sure that either Depay or Aubameyang is going to end up leaving Barcelona, and they'll be able to register.
Aubameyang to Chelsea.
Aubameyang to Chelsea. I think that might happen, or Depay to Chelsea, or Depay to Juve. It could happen, either of these things, or we might even see a case where someone like Depay could end up at Napoli. So there's so many options for these players to go. Crazy. But I think Frank. I'm more confident than ever that Frankie De Jong is going to be my United player come the end of the transfer window. Only because I can see how desperate Barcelona are to really sign players, and also United have even offered to pay the deferred wages, but that's the problem with Barcelona at the moment. They just want the best of everything, and I don't think that's going to work out for them in the short term or in the long term. But we'll see. George, thanks for taking the time to join us, mate. It's been great having you. Trey, as always, thanks for joining me today. And guys, we'll see you next time.